Greetings, travelers, and welcome back to Tales from the Enchanted Forest with your hosts, Fox and Sparrow.
Greetings, travelers. We're so happy to have you back here in the Enchanted Forest. And it's, I know for the past couple weeks, I've been talking about how much snow we've had. I can now say I've joined you, Fox, in the we don't have snow anymore category.
Well,
it is the springtime.
We are about to swap because it's snow and rain in the forecast for me.
Wow. I've just sent it your way.
Yep. I mean, it's fine because living in a ski resort, you kind of want the snow to last, especially since I think they're going to try and keep the resort open until Easter. But given that Easter is really late this year, I don't think that'll happen. But usually that's kind of when they close up the resort fully for the spring is Easter time. So fingers crossed we actually make it to Easter. That'd be really fun. I would like some new snow. But I feel like March is that transition month where you're starting to then want the sun some more because it's appropriate to have sun in March.
Yeah.
I feel like March, April are the 2 months where I love when it rains because then you get that fresh grass scent. Everything is bright. You have the birds chirping again. So I think it's a good month.
Yeah, I'm happy for the kind of the change of seasons. I've enjoyed the snow. But I am now enjoying the, just this change of season. Getting to have, like, longer days is great. Don't really care for this daylight savings nonsense.
Oh,
but,
my gosh.
You know, it's such a fun time.
Especially when you have friends that live in different countries, like different time zones. It makes it so annoying when you have to then recalculate every couple months of, wait, what time did we say?
Yeah. This is such a pain.
But speaking about times and March in general, as many of you know, it is currently Ramadan. So for most Muslims, that means a month of fasting, ending with the celebration of Eid on March 30th. And on top of that, Nowruz, the Persian New Year, will be on March 20th when we welcome the new year of spring and rebirth. So in honor of these big March celebrations, I wanted to tell the story of the pumpkin child, and we wanted to share the story of the rolling pumpkin, both from Iranian folktales. Why pumpkins, you may be asking? It is not really a springtime vegetable and is most closely associated with Halloween, but it's mainly because I miss my mom's pickled pumpkin.
Aww.
And other assorted pickled veggies that she would serve alongside every meal, including the big New Year's one.
That's cute.
Well, in general, I was looking at this story because I've heard a variation of this story. Definitely not this one. But I've heard a variation of this story. And I remember thinking, didn't pumpkins come from North America to Europe? But in general, I think pickled vegetables is just what I'm craving at the moment. Something slightly tangy.
Interesting.
But it's so much work to make it yourself. That's one of those things that's like a labor of love to make. And I'd almost rather someone else make it for me.
I'm happy for you, but please keep pickles away from me. I don't understand.
Do you not like pickles and pickled vegetables?
I do not like pickled vegetables of any kind. I think they're all disgusting.
Oh my God. More than half of the world just gasped. Collective gasp.
Yeah, well, you know what? Other half of the world, more pickled stuff for you. I am not competing with you in the thing you enjoy. So I will just bless all of you with your pickled grossness, and I will just be here with, like, regular vegetables.
A controversial topic of the day.
This is my hot take of the day, is that pickled stuff is gross.
At one point, my husband and I were eating so many pickles. We even had like a little pickle fork that my father-in-law would call us the pickle man and his pickle wife. It's just, I don't know what it was. It was something that, because you know when you rediscover a food that you stop liking for a while and then you have it, and you pick it up and you're like, oh, I'll just, I like this. I remember I like this. Yeah. And you pick it up. And then you realize, wow, why have I stopped buying this food item? I love it. That was us with pickles. I think we'd gone through a pickle drought, and then all of a sudden we bought pickles, and then we were like, we must always have pickles. And the thing was, in a place we used to live, there was a little farm shop. And it had, like, it was attached to a farm, so they had the cows and chickens and stuff, which was more like terrifying for me to walk through because the chickens were like just free roaming chickens. And I don't mind when the cows are free roaming, and because they usually don't come up to you, but the chickens are bold and they will come up to you, and I did not like that. I don't like birds. But in this farm shop, they used to have different types of pickles. And I remember that's where it started, because after work, we would do a walk with my father-in-law, and we would just walk around the field, and then we would loop at the end to the farm shop, and we would pick up like some cheeses, some salami. We would pick up some other stuff. And one of the things we would pick up was different types of pickles, because they had like the coolest combinations. It was like chili pickles. It was like ones with honey. It was like a sweet pickle. But it became part of like a thing. We would go and get pickles, and then we became the pickle man and his pickle wife, which sounds like a folk tale.
Wow. It really does. You guys need to write your own folklore about what happens to the pickle man and his pickle wife.
Yep. With our pickle fork.
It almost feels like it should be a nursery rhyme.
Because I remember being like, oh, it'd be so cool if we had a utensil that could fit into the pickle jar and just take out like a single pickle. And my husband was like, well, we have that. It's a pickle fork. I thought it was just like a small skewer thingy. I didn't know it was a pickle fork, but that was the beginning of the pickle life.
Wow. Your pickle life is it's quite different from me. But I'm glad that you are now like rediscovered this and just having a good old time. But I can see also it's nice, like, kind of, we're probably also like reminds you of memories like you're talking about with your pickled pumpkin your mom makes.
Yeah, she would always pickle things, and I remember having to help her do it because it was a whole morning process to make like the different chutneys and stuff. And so she would wash all the vegetables, and then you'd have to sit there with the processor and the lemon juicer, and you'd have to just like put everything into the machines and watch it all grind up, and then you'd have to put the vinegar, and then you'd have to put the boiling water, and then you have to put everything in jars. It was a really big part of, like, I think the monthly clean or the monthly reset we would do. Well, because my mom was insane. So she would have like every Friday we would do a cleaning day where she would do like the big clean. But then every month we would do like the massive one where all of the rugs would get steamed and all of the curtains would come down and go into the wash, and all the duvets and duvet covers, and basically like not like the sheets, because those would get washed weekly, but like all of the bigger stuff, like the heavier stuff, would go into the wash. It was, and then like the bathtub would get bleached, and then like the floors, the tiles would get scrubbed. It was like a multi-day cleaning affair.
Oh my goodness, that is very different for me.
Yeah,
I mean, we keep a clean house, but we don't do that.
No, I think I was just like, Mom, this is insane. I mean, to be fair, now that I'm an adult, I do that as well, but I don't think I do it to the same extent because I'm not insane. But as part of my immigrant experience to this country, I'm like, I will bring with me the habits of my forefathers, and so once a month we'll do like a big clean.
And are you doing any pickling along with that?
I think we did it once. We made a couple chutneys, but I don't think we've done pickling, just because like the things you would need, you can't get them in the little town that I'm in, like the different things that I would want to pickle. Because you have the basics. You have the basics like the baby cucumbers, and you have the cauliflower that you would pickle, and you have like the baby eggplants that you would need. And I have never seen them in this area, because a lot of the stuff that they sell here is a lot of seasonal stuff.
Yeah, that's fair.
But I've never seen like the little baby eggplants.
But have you seen any pumpkins?
We do get lots of pumpkins, but I don't particularly like buying a full pumpkin, because then I have to make a full pumpkin's worth of stuff. And I can do that like once in a while, because you can make all these different pumpkin recipes, but I don't particularly like pumpkin pie and stuff. And also, you've been to my house, so you've seen like our fridge upstairs is small.
Yes. It's tiny.
Yeah, it's like a tiny fridge, which honestly, I was so, because like, oh, it's a mini fridge. But because of the size of the kitchen, it makes sense for it to be a small fridge. And I prefer the smaller fridge because we do have the bigger one downstairs. But in terms of like space and stuff like that, I'm just like, it doesn't really make sense for two people to like pickle an entire pumpkin.
That's fair. Yeah, pumpkins are more like you have a bunch of guests coming over and you can make some pumpkin like foods out of it for everybody to eat and take home.
Yeah, but I feel like pickled pumpkins is the main thing I like. I don't really like the rest of the things you can do with pumpkin. Pumpkin flavored stuff just doesn't taste that great to me. Even like the pumpkin cookies.
I don't really like pumpkin flavoring in any form, so
no.
I will.
Wait, I do like those Pillsbury those like soft cookies that have like the pumpkin shape on them. I like those. Do they have pumpkin
I don't
flavor?
know if there's any pumpkin. I don't think so.
Okay.
I think they're just like, it's Halloween. Here's a pumpkin icon on top.
Okay, never mind. Because I'm like,
to be fair, that is the form I would want to eat a pumpkin, which is not eat the pumpkin.
But it's so wasteful to just, and that's why I can never get into jack-o'-lanterns, because I'm like, oh, what do I do with the rest of the pumpkin? It would feel so wasteful not to do something with it, but then there's the pressure to actually use up every single piece of it. And like the pumpkin seeds, 100%, those are super easy to use. But I would be like, what about the rest of it? Like, I don't want to just have this pumpkin go to waste.
I honestly didn't know people ate the inside of pumpkins growing up because, like, nobody in my family likes pumpkins. Like, not to that degree where so my mom would always, like, bake the seeds when we did jack-o'-lanterns and stuff. But then, like, I never knew what happened to the guts. I just thought, oh, yeah, that's the part you just have to get rid of to get the jack-o'-lantern. Like, I didn't really think it through. It's like, yeah, this is just what happened. So it was like later on, like, but wait, like, people actually eat that part? Like, that's the gross part you just throw out.
You see, it's different. It's different.
Yeah.
So.
But anyways.
Without any further distractions, our story today is going to be about pumpkins. Our first story comes from Anne Sinclair May Davies' Persian Folk and Fairy Tales, which she says should be called Stories from Nowruz instead, as the majority of them came from her nephew and niece's nurse called Nowruz or Nowruz. To compile the tales, she took notes over the years from her nieces and nephews and watched as they argued over which version was the correct version. So she does recognize that there are many different versions of this tale out there, and this might not be the version that you grew up with. However, this is the one that she heard from this nurse. So without further ado, even though it's not Halloween, let's put our pumpkin hats on and get ready for a story. There was a time, and there wasn't a time, when a good woman lived with her husband at the edge of a small town. Ever since the early days of their marriage, she had prayed for the blessing of a daughter. However, year after year, the couple remained childless. One day, when she had grown tired and frustrated, she jokingly claimed that she would love to have a little girl and wouldn't care if she turned out to look like a pumpkin. Not long after, the couple was blessed with a child, and the wife knew in her heart that she would have her little girl at last.
Aww.
When their beautiful daughter was born, her eyes sparkled like sapphires, and her little lips were as red as pomegranate seeds. The couple was thrilled and took great care of her. One day, the woman went to check on the baby in the cradle, but instead of her baby, she found a little yellow pumpkin. When her husband saw the pumpkin and no plausible explanation as to where their daughter went, he ran into town and never came back. His wife's words from before her pregnancy ran through his mind, and he never returned for fear that she was a witch. The wife, however, refused to give up on her daughter, so she continued to love it as if it were a human.
I just love this image of this guy just being just like, absolutely not. I'm just noping on out of here. That's it. Methinks other things were going on where he was just like, you know what? I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, in some versions, they do try and excuse it with he was overcome with grief, but I mean, that's a deadbeat father.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You
Um,
can't just look at your daughter and then run away and be like, I can't do this.
Also, so instantly, like he doesn't even wait to see if it was maybe a
Yeah.
curse, maybe there was something wrong, maybe his wife was playing a trick. He was just like, nope, my daughter is a pumpkin. I'm going to leave forever, never to be heard from again.
Yeah. I'm just like, maybe like the wife was a bit of a trickster and like playing these pranks. And so he just thought this was a prank. He's like, I'm just done with all of this. I'm gone.
Year after year, the pumpkin grew until it was too big for her to carry. Soon, the pumpkin began rolling on its own and could move around the house and the streets, which meant the neighbors soon learned about the pumpkin child. Now, the neighbors had assumed the much-loved child of the couple had died, and the mother had gone crazy. Many cruelly mocked the woman, but she did not care because she loved her little girl regardless.
Aww.
More years passed, and the woman continued to care for the growing pumpkin child. She dressed it in handmade dresses and loved it with her whole heart. When the girl was 15, the woman decided to send her to school with the other girls to learn how to sew and knit. The morning came when she dressed the pumpkin, advised her not to worry about any mocking, kissed her farewell, and watched as the pumpkin rolled through the streets towards the school.
My goodness. Can you imagine if you went to school one day and there was just a pumpkin child sitting next to you?
Like a giant pumpkin. Remember, this isn't like a small pumpkin. It's about the size of a 15-year-old girl, I would think.
My goodness. Like that would just be, as a kid, if I was in that class, I would just be so terrified. Like,
also, like, it
happening?
can roll. So obviously, like, this is a sentient pumpkin.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I feel so bad for this kid already.
I know. Being a teenager is hard enough, but imagine also being a pumpkin.
Just straight up a pumpkin.
But a pumpkin dressed in little dresses? I mean, come on. It's so cute.
Okay, there's got to be some girls there who are like, okay, no, this is actually adorable. We'll protect her. Please. Please.
Now, next to the school for young women was a merchant's house. The rich merchant's son, Murad, loved watching the young ladies work and sew in the courtyard beneath his father's windows. Curiously, one day he watched as a pumpkin rolled down the street and went into the building. He kept watching and soon noticed that every day at noon, most of the young women would head under the fig trees to eat their lunch, while the giant pumpkin rolled off to the far corner of the garden and hid under the currant bushes. One day, he climbed up his father's roof and watched the bush. Sure enough, the pumpkin rolled under the bush at lunchtime, but from his vantage point, he could see what unfolded next. The top of the pumpkin flew off, revealing a girl. When she stepped out, he noticed she was as beautiful as the moon on its 14th night. The girl looked around and then climbed up the grapevine to grab some grapes for her lunch before stepping back into her pumpkin. Amazed, he watched her every day for a week, before he was well and truly in love with her.
She's hiding in a pumpkin.
Finally, he steeled his courage and crept over to the edge of his father's roof, which connected with the grapevines. At noon, when she climbed up to gather her grapes, she was surprised to see a young man staring down at her. He grabbed her hand and was about to ask her to marry him when the startled girl drew back, clambered down the vine, and disappeared into her pumpkin. Before he could utter a word or make a move to follow her, the pumpkin had rolled off to nestle safely among the other young girls, none of which paid her any mind. Murad was dejected until he opened his fist to see that her ring had slipped off during her escape. An idea came to him then, and he returned inside to find his mother. Taking his mother's hands in his, he told her that he was finally ready to marry, but only to the girl who could wear this ring on her middle finger. The mother took the ring and passed it on to their faithful servant, Nana, with orders to go to every house and find the young woman whose finger fit the ring. So, of course, you can see this is a Cinderella type trope happening now, except the girl is the pumpkin.
Oh my goodness, you're right. There's layers to this.
Nana went like an onion or a pumpkin.
Oh my gosh, I love this so much.
It's like all of those fairy tale retellings that are coming out recently, except someone was like, the same story, but the girl is the pumpkin.
Yeah, exactly. But what if the prince wanted to marry the pumpkin and not the princess or the maiden? Oh, but I love this idea. She's just hiding out in the pumpkin. It's so funny. Like, she could just pop out and be like, "Hi guys, I'm normal. Let's hang out." And she's like, "No, I'm hiding in my
When
pumpkin."
you're an introvert, but you take it a bit too far. Now you have to live with the fact that you're a pumpkin girl.
Honestly, vibes. I relate to this.
Nana went from house to house, asking every eligible young woman to try the ring. When people asked her what she was doing, the servant replied that she was looking for the girl, rich or poor, whose finger would fit the ring, and that girl would then become the wife of the rich merchant's son. As soon as the girls in the town heard this story, they grew excited at the prospect of marrying the handsomest man around. News spread about the general size of the ring, so girls began starving themselves to make their fingers slender, or stuffing themselves with butter to make them plump enough to fit. However, try as they might, none could fit the ring perfectly. After much failure, finally, gray-haired Nana came to the house of the good wife at the edge of town. She knocked on the door and called out for the young girls of the house as she had done in every house before. This time, the good wife cried out that she did not wish to be mocked at her own home. How dare someone come to her door and make fun of her and her daughter? Surprised, Nana asked what the woman was talking about, and after the good wife explained that her daughter had turned into a pumpkin when she was a baby, Nana asked to see the pumpkin girl. When the pumpkin rolled in, Nana laughed and said that she was there to offer the ring to all of the young ladies. As she held out the ring, a delicate, slender hand poked out of the side of the pumpkin. Both women almost fainted in shock, but to their delight, the ring fit. The old servant dashed back to her mistress in fright and shared the news about the pumpkin girl at the edge of town. Murad's mother was horrified at the news and declared that surely her son did not intend to marry a pumpkin. But Murad calmly asked the servant to go fetch the girl. Nana ran back to the house, and out she came with the pumpkin rolling behind her and the good wife trailing along in shock. Everyone laughed at this procession and thought that Murad surely did not mean to marry a pumpkin, but the boy was steadfast and declared that he would. And so the wedding was held. Murad's mother wept, his father shouted, and the entire town laughed because the richest and handsomest young man in town was marrying a fat yellow pumpkin. Paying them no heed, Murad took his pumpkin to a house far away on a hill where he cared for her and loved her. He loved her in this way without letting others laugh at her. One day, when Murad was asleep, the top of the pumpkin flew off, and the girl finally stepped out. She kissed her husband gently to wake him up. He cried out for her and asked how she had been released. The pumpkin maiden said that Murad's love had released her, for if she had not been loved when she was a pumpkin, she would never be loved at all and never be free. So Murad and his pumpkin wife lived happily ever after with the good wife, the pumpkin wife's mother. They kept the pumpkin shell in a corner of their house to remind themselves of the days when Murad and the mother had loved the pumpkin child, even though everyone else had laughed at them. And that is the story of the Pumpkinhead.
I mean, it's sweet. I have notes.
Okay.
I mean, my first big question is, if no one knew there was a girl inside of the pumpkin, where did she get the ring and one that was so perfectly fit on her?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those fairy tale, you know how it is.
I mean, yes, I'm in this business of fairy tales and I understand, but also I have to ask the important questions of where are objects coming from.
Maybe it was her mother's, but then wouldn't the mother recognize it when the servant came to bring it to them?
I guess that's true. But she also seemed surprised that there was like a girl inside the pumpkin. So like one of her rings just went missing one day and she was like, I guess that's fine.
I don't know. I mean, it's very clear the mom did not know the girl was inside the pumpkin. She just loved it regardless.
Yeah, which is very sweet.
But there are lots of questions about this. Pumpkin children and, of course, women inside of different fruits is not a new storytelling tradition. We do have the Japanese story, of course, of the bamboo princess, where she comes out of the bamboo. But I did find out when researching the story that the fruit vegetable maiden concept actually exists in lots of different folklore traditions. I mean, even within just Persian folklore, there is the story of the daughter of the orange and the bitter orange, which is about a maiden within a citrus fruit. And then there's an entire ATU classification of the 3 oranges, which contains Italian, Kurdish, Iraqi, different European traditions of citrus fruit maidens.
Wow, a lot of people have looked at their fruits and vegetables and like, what if there was a hot girl inside of this?
Yeah, people were like, what if I open up this pomegranate and a woman pops out? Or you know what could be inside of my orange? A lady.
And she'd be so pretty, and she would love me because I opened up the fruit, or I love the fruit.
Yeah,
just
I mean,
right,
it's
and then she'll come out.
From a very like logical standpoint, if someone presented you with an object, you would be like, so I'm about to call TLC's My Strange Addiction right away. If someone's like, oh yeah, this pumpkin, she's my wife, I'd be like, okay, great. You can go and hang out with that guy who thought cars were real things that he could be in relationships with.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that show was so weird.
Yes, but in general, I thought this was a fun story. It had all the elements of a fairy tale as well as a folk tale. You had lots of people laughing, but
absolutely,
he who laughs last laughs longest, as Gina from Brooklyn Nine-Nine would say.
Oh, no, I really liked it, though. I always have notes at the end of fairy tales, but it's because I enjoy it, and I just also enjoy the picking it apart. It's very cute. I love that he just fell in love with the pumpkin regardless, that even though people were like mocking him, he was like, no, guys, it's cool. It's cool.
I can just imagine imagine being a neighbor in this town. And first, the lady at the edge of town finally has a baby. You're quite happy for her. And then her husband runs away and she starts dressing up this pumpkin as a baby. And you think, wow, okay, she's kind of lost it.
Yeah.
And then one of the richest, handsomest boys in town goes around looking for a wife, and you finally like, okay, great, maybe it's my turn, maybe it's, my child's turn. And then he's like, I'm going to marry the pumpkin child. And you're like, what has possessed these people? Probably the best time to say what in the devil is going on, because this sounds like devil work.
But also on the other end of things, you can also be like, well, I'm not sure if I'd want to be with this guy anyways, if this is what he's into. Like, maybe I've dodged a bullet here. Obviously, they didn't actually, because this turned out really sweet and cute. But on the other hand, if I see that, I'm like, I think I'm good. You know what? This is fine. You do you.
Okay, so that's our first pumpkin-related story. There is another funny story, and this is more of like a children's tale called The Rolling Pumpkin. And this one tells a story of an old woman whose daughter moved to the other side of a dark forest after she got married. One Eid, the old lady missed her daughter terribly and decided to make the journey despite the risks. As she walked, she sang about missing her daughter. Soon, a wolf caught her scent and pounced. But when he caught her scarf under his massive claws, the old woman shrieked that it would be such a waste to eat her now. She was so skinny, and it would be so unsatisfying, and to be honest, a waste of time. She advised the wolf to wait until after she came back from her daughter's celebrations. Her daughter would feed her well, and the old woman would come back fat. The wolf thought this through and agreed, bid her to hurry, and then watched as she carefully made her way through the woods again. Soon, a tiger caught sight of the old woman, and he went to tear into her, but she cried out that she was skin and bones, but she would be so fat and stuffed on her way back. Could he wait for just a few more days? The tiger thought this through, agreed, bid her to hurry, and left to go wait somewhere comfortable for her return.
Me thinks that this is like a Billy Goat's Gruff
It is
story.
a Billy Goat's Gruff situation.
I love it. I love it.
See, I knew this would be the kind of folklore that you would like, because I'm like, it's got that repetition of the threes, the trickery, the weird solution to a problem.
Girl, you know me so well. I love it.
The old woman walked much faster, but just as she heard the sounds of merrymaking in the distance, she was confronted by a fearsome lion. Before he could shake his mane and pounce, she cried out that it would be such an honor to be eaten by the king of the animals. However, she would be doing him an injustice the way she was now, all skin and bones and sweat from walking in the forest. If he only waited a few more days, then she would be back and fit for the king to snack on. The lion was hungry, but he agreed, bidding her to hurry back, and then he lay in wait. Finally, the old woman made it through the trees and into her daughter's joyous arms. She was so thrilled to see her daughter, her nieces and nephews, and her son-in-law that she was too caught up on the feasting and celebrations to think about the creatures waiting for her in the woods. Soon, Eid was over, and the time for her to return came to pass. The old woman confided her troubles to her daughter, and they both came up with an idea so wild that it just might work. At the market, they found the largest pumpkin they could and went to work hollowing it out. Then the old woman climbed inside with her bag, and the men rolled her into the woods. The pumpkin rolled and was first stopped by the lion, who asked the pumpkin if it had seen an old woman walking through. She replied no and asked him to push her along, which he did. Then the tiger stopped her, asked her the same question, and pushed her along after she had answered. At last, she rolled upon the wolf, but when she answered, the wolf recognized her voice at once and tore at the lid to get to her. However, the old woman had anticipated at least one of the predators catching her off guard and had a second hole carved into the other side. So as soon as the wolf pried the top off, she jumped out from the second lid and slammed it closed on the wolf's face. Then she reached around and slammed the top lid shut, trapping the wolf inside the cramped space. Then she rolled the pumpkin deep into the valley and ran away back to her house. Unfortunately, the wolf rolled and rolled until he rolled off a cliff, while the old lady enjoyed a nice cup of tea, safe and sound, in her own home. And that is the story of the rolling pumpkin.
I love it. I love just the thought process of, like, what if I hid in a pumpkin? And they won't recognize my voice. It will be fine. Though I have to admit, at that last part, I really thought you were going to say, like, she then cooked and ate the wolf. Like, I thought it was going to be one of those stories.
That's usually how those stories go, don't they? But I think she just rolled him off and ran back home. So there we have it. 2 pumpkin-related stories. One, we have more of a Cinderella concept. And the second, it was definitely more of a children's folktale. But I hope, regardless of which one you enjoyed more, that you enjoyed both of them.
Thank you, travelers, so much for listening, and I hope you all have a great Ramadan if you are celebrating, and otherwise enjoy this March. Hope the weather is perfect, whatever that is you're looking for in terms of warmer weather or still a bit more snow for your skiing season.
And don't forget, if you want to hear more from us and find out what our next tale will be, come join us anytime on Bluesky, Instagram, or TikTok at Tales from Enchanted Forest or at From Enchanted. You can also check out this story along with others that we have shared for the Persian New Year or other Persian tales in general on our website, www.talesfromenchantedforest.com. Or if you are just old school like Sparrow and want to chat or ask for more information, you can always email us at talesfromenchantedforest@gmail.com. We'd love to hear your comments, questions, and suggestions. So if you have anything to share, please don't hesitate.
And remember, there's always a place for you in the Enchanted Forest.